The latest events in the Jujutsu Kaisen story have set the internet on fire, and the entire fandom is in disarray. Some are satisfied, many are extremely angry, but everyone is shocked about what happened and how it all went down. Like seriously, even if you predicted that something like this could happen eventually, you still didn't think that it would happen the way that it did. It was so crazy that I saw accounts on social media that normally don't even cover Jujutsu Kaisen straight up spoiling what happened way before the official translation even came out. People just collectively lost their minds over Gojo. But with the official translation finally out, we need to correct some important misconceptions about Gojo's death, and we need to discuss the potential that we're all missing something. Yes, things look extremely bad for Gojo. He looks extremely dead. But could this be a massive case of jebaiting by the author of Jujutsu Kaisen? Are there any scenarios in which Gojo could still survive or come back to life? Well, yes, there are, and we will break them all down right now in this video. We will also talk about what happens next if Gojo really is dead for good, so let's get into it. You guys know how this works. If you enjoy our Jujutsu Kaisen content and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment right now for that YouTube algorithm. And if you want to help us become a special grade anime YouTube channel by hitting 2 million subscribers, don't forget to subscribe right now. Subscribing on YouTube is completely free, but it helps me out a lot. So, when the leaks for chapter 236 first came out, there was a part where Gojo mentioned someone's father, and at first we were speculating that he might be referring to his own father. However, it seems that he was actually referring to Megumi's father, Toji Fushiguro. Gojo was basically saying that he wanted to tell Megumi about Toji himself, but thankfully he told Shoko to fill Megumi in case something happened to him. I mean, that's cool and all, but I think Megumi has bigger problems right about now. Anyway, let's start off with the scenario that Gojo really did just die in JJK and that he isn't coming back. This is definitely possible. I mean, if anyone was ever going to kill Gojo, it would be the strongest sorcerer in history, Sukuna. And besides, if Gojo just keeps defeating everyone in the series, then the other characters like Yuji will never get a chance to grow. However, there is a difference between killing off an important mentor character in order to pave the way for the next generation, and suddenly killing that character off screen with the most whiplash I've ever seen between two chapters of a manga. Chapter 235 ended with Kusakabe declaring Gojo to be the winner of the fight. And then chapter 236 begins with Gojo seemingly already dead after being killed off screen. We didn't even get to see what happened. I've seen a lot of people complaining about this, and I think that's valid, especially if this really does turn out to be the end of Gojo in the story. To be fair, I've also seen people saying that this chapter was actually brilliant, and again, if this is the last we ever see of Gojo in the story, I have to hard disagree on that. Taste is of course subjective, but you can't tell me that so much whiplash and killing off one of your most important and most popular characters suddenly off screen is good writing. It just isn't. It ends up being extremely unsatisfying and anticlimactic for the reader. Now, once again, this is only true if we assume that Gege will simply leave it at this and won't expand on Gojo's death or won't bring him back in any way. Frankly, I don't even see how the story progresses from here if Gojo is completely gone, because we know that Sukuna still has a trump card. Gojo even confirmed that Sukuna didn't go all out, so if he already took down the strongest sorcerer of the modern era, Gojo, who could possibly defeat him now? And then there's Kenjaku and his whole plan with Master Tengen. How can these villains be stopped now without some sort of major ass pull by the heroes? To be clear, I'm not saying that Gojo dying is itself an ass pull. Some people are saying that, but I think that his death at the hands of Sukuna is believable, and the way that it was explained makes sense, although it is a bit out of pocket. Mahoraga was able to change the nature of its own cursed energy in order to cut through the fabric of space itself, allowing it to cut through Gojo's infinity. Gojo's infinity protects him by infinitely dividing the space between Gojo and his attacker, essentially creating a paradox in which the attack will slowly move closer to Gojo, but it will never actually reach him. By cutting the fabric of space itself, Mahoraga is able to just cut through infinity like it wasn't even there. After seeing Mahoraga use this technique against Gojo right in front of him, Sukuna figured out how to use it himself, and he eventually copied it in order to kill Gojo. Yes, it's sudden and a bit out of pocket, like this is a serious escalation in terms of power creep, but it isn't completely unrealistic within the world of JJK. But again, after this long, epic battle and everything we've seen from Gojo, if he was to die, then he deserved an epic final scene full of emotion and intensity. He deserved better than to be killed off screen. So maybe we are missing something, and maybe Gege plans to bring Gojo back in some way. After all, Gojo practically died in his fight against Toji, but he came back from death's door. Now, of course, he is injured even more severely now, but we can't forget that Gojo can physically alter and rewire his own brain. So who knows what kind of new power or ability related to reverse curse technique he could potentially come up with and somehow regenerate. Maybe Gojo was just at death's door again, but he will find some new insane power-up that will allow him to leave his fallen comrades back at that airport between life and death while he returns to this world. If that happens, it will again anger a bunch of people because they will call it plot armor, but Shonen is full of such power-ups and such fake-out deaths, so we can't rule it out. There are also scenarios in which Gojo's body really does die physically, but Gojo's soul survives in some way. We always have to remember that Gojo possesses two incredibly rare and overpowered abilities, Limitless and the Six Eyes. Someone like Kenjaku would do pretty much anything to gain access to such powers. And I could totally see him appearing on the battlefield and trying to take over Gojo's body right about now. Yes, he'll have to figure out some way to fix Gojo's severe injuries, but I wouldn't put that ability past him. After all, Kenjaku can literally place his own brain inside a body that is already dead and then reanimate it and bring it back to life and use it for his own ends. And this includes the body's cursed energy and innate techniques. Kenjaku may try to invade Gojo's body, repair it in some Frankenstein way, and then take Limitless and the Six Eyes for himself. This could potentially make Kenjaku a worthy opponent even for Sukuna, creating a potential rivalry between the two. Like, yeah, they're both villains, but at the end of the day, they both have their own interests and agendas, so this could lead them to clash. But if Kenjaku ends up controlling Gojo's body, then it's no longer Gojo in there, so he's still dead, right? Technically yes, but we still know very little about how souls actually work in Jujutsu Kaisen, although we do know that they are a real thing that exists in that world. Could Gojo's soul somehow remain attached to his body after Kenjaku moves in, and then eventually take back control once Kenjaku repairs the body? Like, could Gojo somehow alter his brain or some other part of his body to keep his soul tethered to his body even after death? It's not impossible, because again, there is still a lot of room to play with when it comes to the nature of a soul in JJK, but there's also another option. In chapter 222, we saw Yuji training martial arts with Kusakabe. From their brief training scene, it is clear that for some reason, Yuji's soul is inside Kusakabe's body, and Kusakabe's soul is inside Yuji's body. This wasn't really explained, so it raised a ton of questions of course, but the most popular theory is that now that he's free of Sukuna, Yuji finally managed to develop his own unique, innate technique. And it seems that this technique may give Yuji the ability to switch souls with other people, or perhaps manipulate souls in general, and the switching is just one aspect of his power. If that's the case, then maybe Yuji has the ability to save Gojo by secretly transferring his soul into another body. Maybe even Yuji's own body so they can share it temporarily. Then, if Kenjaku ends up possessing Gojo's body and repairing it, Yuji can just return Gojo's soul into his body at a later date. And Gojo can then take back control from Kenjaku. This is obviously a heavily speculative scenario, but based on that soul-swapping tease from chapter 222, clearly Gege wants us to know that some sort of soul-swapping shenanigans may be happening in the near future. Okay, but is there a scenario in which Gojo could come back to his own body without any soul-swapping stuff after sustaining such a severe injury? In chapter 236, we did see Gojo in that purgatory airport waving goodbye to his deceased comrades and then seemingly leaving on an airplane. So what did that mean? Did it mean that he's just moving on to the afterlife? Or did it mean that he's actually moving on to something else entirely? Could Gojo, being as incredibly strong as he is, push himself to evolve beyond humanity, kind of like Master Tengen? Master Tengen was a powerful Jujutsu sorcerer during the Nara period of Japanese history, so about 1200 years ago, and the master was known for spreading Buddhism in Japan, as well as forming the foundation for Jujutsu sorcerers. Initially, Tengen was just one person, a woman, but eventually Tengen merged with other humans, also known as star plasma vessels, in order to avoid losing touch with humanity and becoming a threat to the world. That's because Tengen's innate technique makes the master immortal, but Tengen still needs to merge with a new vessel every 500 years. At this point in the story, Tengen has advanced beyond mere humanity and has a body that doesn't even look human anymore. Right now, Tengen is said to be closer to a cursed spirit than a human. I can't help but think that the reason why Tengen's evolution beyond humanity had such a strong focus in Gojo's backstory is because it was foreshadowing Gojo's own ultimate fate. Just like Tengen during the Nara period, Gojo is one of the strongest Jujutsu sorcerers in history and the strongest pillar of modern Jujutsu sorcery. Not only that, but Buddhism and spreading Buddhism is a key characteristic of most of the powerful ancient sorcerers, including of course Tengen. And Gojo himself is full of references to Buddhism. His very name, Satoru, is a reference to Satori, a Zen Buddhist term used to describe the sudden experience of enlightenment. Enlightenment entails seeing into one's true nature, the true nature of reality beyond what we perceive with just our thoughts and physical senses, beyond the physical world, beyond what we conventionally think of as humanity. Gojo's famous quote, "Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one," isn't even Gojo's quote. According to the Zen Buddhist tradition, this is a quote attributed directly to the Buddha himself. Obviously, Buddhism is known for the pursuit of an evolved consciousness, for things like reincarnation and rebirth, and if Gojo has been so strongly linked to Buddhism from the beginning, maybe this was all foreshadowing his coming evolution beyond humanity. Perhaps this evolution will be something similar to Master Tengen, or perhaps it will be very different. This is probably my preferred scenario for what happens next, because Gojo's evolution would go hand in hand with what Kenjaku is essentially trying to do with the culling game. So it would make sense thematically, and it would also mean that Gojo didn't just freaking die off screen. I just can't get over that, I'm sorry. Now, let me know what you guys think right now down in the comments. Is Gojo just straight up dead and he's not coming back? Or is he going to unlock a new power and somehow heal himself and survive? Or is his body going to die physically, but his soul will somehow survive inside of Yuji or somewhere else? Or is he going to evolve beyond humanity itself like Tengen? Was Gojo's evolution beyond humanity all a part of Kenjaku's master plan? If you want to know all the details about Kenjaku's plan and his secret connection to Yuji's mother, check out my video that breaks all of that down for you in one place, link on screen and in the description. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more JJK content here on the channel, leave a quick like right now. And if you want to help us become a special grade anime channel by hitting 2 million subscribers, please subscribe right now. Subscribing on YouTube is completely free and it helps me out a lot.